Doesn't strike me at all. Same reaction. Kathy Engelbert should resign as the commissioner of the WNBA. And the reason I said that, fellas, is because when a player, and Nafisha Kali is a star in the WNBA. This is not some role player. This is her, okay? Who also happens to be a vice president. You understand what, Players Association. For her to come out.
The strangest part isn't that Caitlin Clark might be done with the WNBA. It's how quietly everyone pretended this was impossible 5 minutes ago. 1 minute she's the future, the next there's a union meltdown and Stephen A suddenly sounds like the adult in the room. Something cracked behind the scenes and it wasn't a basketball. So, what actually happened when the league's biggest asset collided with its loudest politics? And who miscalculated first?
News finally came out. Caitlin Clark voted on by general managers, the best point guard, the best shooting guard, and the singular player they would start the franchise with. In the weird, insular WNBA, this has been a real struggle. You know the truth. And there's these people who are gatekeeping mentality. We'll tell you who's great. Colin, I was watching the WNBA long before Caitlin Clark. Well, yeah, it's not my problem. You're social.
Nobody wants to admit this out loud, but the most shocking part of this whole saga is not that the WNBA Players Association crashed out early. And it is not even that the league might be staring down a labor war.
Look, everywhere you turn, Indiana Fever is breaking records. All Cheryl Swoops did was validate all the speculation that there's folks hating on Caitlin Clark. That's all she did. Because to know basketball like Cheryl Swoops does, to be as accomplished as she is, to be the Hall of Famer that she is, all accolades that are well-deserved. And I'm certainly not attacking Cheryl Swoops as a person because I think she's a wonderful person.
The truly uncomfortable part is realizing how fast the entire system panicked the moment one player quietly stopped playing along. 4 years, the idea was simple and comforting. The league was bigger than any individual.
Someone came in that everybody wants to watch, kids, everybody. You're sitting there beating it up and doing all this. All y'all become is hated. Like, have y'all not paid attention? No one is caring about anything else. You want to beat on it, they're going to hate on it. You want to talk, they're going to hate on it. Like, there comes a point where reality has to kick in. You can keep fighting the fight, and you're going to be the odd person that looks bad. Do they not know, like, when she was gone, it went back to the year before she was in the league.
Yeah.
Like, the view stopped. Like, just enjoy and go on.
Then Stephen A. Smith basically ripped the curtain down and reminded everyone that comfort stories tend to collapse the second money, power, and ego collide in the same room. Just weeks ago, the narrative felt untouchable.
And attack the commission. And I say that not in any kind of derogatory way. She was talking about Kathy Engelbert directly. She revealed private conversations, you understand, with quotes from this lady, the commissioner, about what she said that came across as dismissive, as derogatory, and unappreciative of the athletes that represent her league.
Women's basketball was finally having its moment. Arenas were full, ratings were exploding, charter flights were finally happening, and everyone was congratulating everyone else like the job was finished. The league felt like it had crossed some invisible finish line where nothing could go wrong anymore. Growth was inevitable. Success was guaranteed. The vibes were immaculate. And then the union looked at all that momentum and decided this was the perfect time to light a match in the middle of a fireworks factory. The Players Association did not wait for the contract to expire. They did not slowly test the waters. They opted out 2 years early, ripped the CBA up like it was an expired coupon, and walked straight into negotiations, convinced they were holding a royal flush. From their perspective, it made perfect sense. Attendance was up, TV numbers were popping, corporate sponsors were circling. If you were ever going to demand more money, more benefits, profitability is not some ancient tradition here. It is brand new, still warm, and still heavily dependent on one very specific engine. The union acted like the money was permanent, diversified, and immune to chaos.
Watch someone like her just start just dominating. You're like, oh yeah. It's just exciting.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah, she's She's obviously doing amazing. Her game speaks for itself. I think my favorite part is just women's basketball, women's sports really, but women's basketball has been on the rise. Like this moment, we kind of needed something.
This is
to
that
just
moment.
yeah, and Caitlin's that moment. And I think a lot of it has to do with her logo threes. But you can't really talk trash on a logo three.
So a logo 3 is
That's
deep. That's almost half court where the NBA,
and that's
where
like,
the
Stephen A basically reminded them that this entire boom has a name, a face, and a jump shot, and antagonizing that reality is not bravery, it is business malpractice. While the union was busy making noise demanding equity and flexing what they believed was collective leverage, Caitlin Clark did something far more dangerous. She went quiet. No press tour, no dramatic announcement, no cryptic social media essays. She simply declined to participate in the next shiny thing everyone assumed she needed. When Unrivaled came calling with money, equity, and a red carpet rolled out by veterans who were supposed to be allies, she said no and went to play golf instead. That single decision landed louder than any protest ever could. Stephen A did not call it a retirement. He did not frame it as rebellion. He framed it as something much scarier, a soft resignation, a strategic step back that sends a message without ever raising its voice. Caitlin Clark did not storm out of the building. She calmly walked toward the exit and left the door open just enough for everyone to panic about whether she might actually leave for good. Here is where the union miscalculated in a way that almost feels impressive. Most players in the league need this new CBA. They need higher salaries, better benefits, and safer travel because their current situation barely works. That is not an insult. It is reality. For decades, players had to play year-round, bounce between continents, and put their bodies at risk just to make a decent living. Wanting more is not greedy. It is overdue. But Caitlin Clark does not live in that reality.
Being that golden goose per se, that rising tide that's lifting all boats. I stand by my past proclamations that there's resentment towards her because of that. But I want to take it a step further. There's also resentment towards her because she instigates resentment towards her sometimes.
He continues to bring this up in so many arguments, and I just don't get it because it has been disproven so many times. Like, please find me the multiple clips of the many times that Caitlin Clark was doing this in the face.
Her WNBA salary is a rounding error compared to her endorsement deals. Her brand exists completely independent of the league. Nike, Gatorade, State Farm, Wilson, and everyone else did not sign her because of a union contract. They signed her because she moves culture. Stephen A hammered this point until it was impossible to ignore. If the league shuts down tomorrow, most players lose income immediately. Caitlin Clark does not. She could stop playing professional basketball entirely and still be financially set for life. That changes everything. This is where the golden goose analogy becomes painfully accurate. The union wants a share of the revenue that exploded this season. But that explosion came from one source. You cannot spend a year letting that source get hammered on the court, shaded in the media, side eyes instead of support. Olympic conversations that somehow left out the biggest draw in the sport. Media narratives downplaying her impact while benefiting from her presence. Stephen A did not dance around it. He called it jealousy mixed with denial. And that combination is toxic in any workplace, but especially in one that depends on public interest.
I gave you a person and now you're rejecting it. Y'all should be like Caesar. I appreciate you, Caitlin. Thank you. I can eat a little bit better. She got paid this. She get a signature shoe. Hey, I'm a 2-time MVP. I'm a champion. The fact that there's this much animosity about the person that's feeding you. And I'm going to say it just like she's feeding y'all.
Yes.
Doors that y'all didn't do. So to be honest, shut up. Because y'all couldn't do it. Just accept it and benefit.
The numbers refused to lie. No matter how uncomfortable they make people feel, road games turned into sellouts the moment Caitlin Clark came to town. The Fever outdrew back-to-back champions. Ratings spiked on nights she played. Merchandise flew off the shelves. TV partners did not invest because of abstract progress. They invested because people were watching. When the union talks about revenue sharing without acknowledging where that revenue is coming from, it alienates the very partners funding their raises. League leadership does not escape this either. Stephen A made sure of that. Allowing a hostile environment to fester around the league's biggest asset is a failure so obvious it almost feels intentional. Any competent business protects its rainmaker. The mental side of this situation might be the most dangerous part for the league. By the end of the season, Caitlin Clark did not just look tired. She looked emotionally drained. Every facial expression became a headline. Every interaction got dissected. Every reaction was turned into a thick piece. Stephen A. suggested that stepping away is not weakness, it is self-preservation.
And mention a multitude of players, and now one of them is Caitlin Clark, who, by the way, is a rookie leading the league in assists. How do you do that? I told y'all that. I've argued with the great Andrea Carter, outstanding analyst for ESPN, right here on this podcast. I've argued with Janae Ogumake, who's an outstanding basketball analyst, and Monica McNutt, one of the preeminent voices of the New York Knicks, and what she's doing with her career. They know they got my support, all love. But I'm waiting for you to say I was right. Caitlin Clark can ball. She should have been on Team U.
When someone realizes they are happier outside an environment than inside it, money stops being the primary motivator. History is full of athletes who walked away early because the environment became unbearable. Barry Sanders did it. Calvin Johnson did it. Andrew Luck did it. None of them needed the money anymore. And all of them decided peace was worth more than legacy debates. Caitlin Clark already has the money. If she decides peace matters more than appeasing a league in chaos, no contract negotiation can stop that. The unrivaled rejection adds another layer of irony that is almost poetic. That league was supposed to be the solution, a domestic option for players to make real money in the offseason without flying overseas. Getting Caitlin Clark was the key to unlocking massive TV deals. Stephen A. strongly implied that this was not accidental. Caitlin Clark understands leverage better than people give her credit for. By withholding participation, she proves her value. If unrivaled struggles without her, it confirms everything critics have been saying. The public is here for her specifically, not just for women's basketball as a vague concept. That truth makes people uncomfortable. But discomfort does not change reality.
Parker, right? The Indiana Fever star was named Time Magazine's Athlete of the Year earlier this week, and she took time to acknowledge that race played a role in her success this year. Here's a passage from the article in Times Magazine. Quote, "I want to say I've earned every single thing, but as a white person, there is privilege. A lot of those players in the league that have been really good have been black players. This league has been built on them. The more we can appreciate that, highlight that, talk about that, I think it's very important. I have to continue to try to change that. The more we can elevate black women, that's going to be a beautiful thing."
And the timing of the union opt-out raises even more questions. Why now? Why not wait? The official explanation is simple. They want a new model that reflects growth. Higher pay, better pensions, improved standards, all reasonable demands. But the subtext is fear. Fear that the moment might pass. Fear that the hype could cool. Fear that waiting would weaken their leverage. Ironically, by creating instability, they risk killing the momentum entirely. Casual fans are fickle. They tune in because something feels exciting, not because they feel morally obligated. If the league goes into a lockout, if games are delayed or canceled, those fans will not protest. They will change the channel and move on. Stephen A. Magic and Bird were marketed relentlessly because the league needed them to survive. Fairness was a luxury that came later. The WNBA is in a similar moment, whether people like it or not. Acting like every player deserves equal shine regardless of impact is not noble. It is naive. When the union pushes for equal outcomes while ignoring who is actually driving revenue, it sends a message to sponsors that reality does not matter. Sponsors tend to respond to that message by pulling out.
Do you keep bringing it up when it's also not true? And Hailey Van Lith is somebody who came out and said, Caitlin never did this to other players. She did it to her own strength coach directed toward the bench. And it's so funny because there's actually a community note on this video on X where fans came in and said, Hailey Van Lith already cleared this up in an interview that Caitlin Clark never did that towards her and she didn't do it toward other players also. You keep bringing up, digging up this old dirt and say that that is the reason.
Then there is the global angle that almost no one wants to talk about yet. Caitlin Clark is not just an American star anymore. She is a global brand. European teams would throw absurd money at her for short exhibition runs. A global tour would sell out arenas in London, Paris, Tokyo, and beyond. She could make more in a month than the entire league payroll. The WNBA is her most convenient option, not her only option. Stephen A. hinted that globalization gives her an escape route that the league cannot control. If the environment becomes too toxic, she has a passport and a fan base that follows her anywhere. That possibility should terrify anyone who cares about the league's future, because once fans learn they can get their Stephen A. called it economic suicide. And it is hard to argue otherwise. TV networks signed deals projecting Caitlin Clark's trajectory. If she steps away or if games stop, those networks will not just shrug. Contracts have clauses. Payments get withheld. Suddenly, the revenue everyone was fighting over shrinks to nothing. Revenue sharing of 0% of 0 is still 0.
To Caitlin Clark. Now I've taken hits because I was calling it from day one. You got people that are resentful towards her, but it's really not about her, guys. It's about what she represents. Before she ever came along, there were a lot of outstanding basketball players who happened to be black females that was doing their thing on the WNBA level. And they never got this kind of shine.
There are also whispers about agent frustration behind the scenes. Agents understand that rising tides lift all boats. Caitlin Clark's presence brought endorsement opportunities to players who never had them before. It forced charter flights after decades of resistance. In one season, she accomplished what years of negotiations could not. The response from some corners has not been gratitude, but entitlement. That resentment feels less about Caitlin Clark and more about history. Veterans suffered so the next generation could thrive. That is how progress works. Getting angry at a 22-year-old because she did not have to endure the same struggle is understandable emotionally. Fans are emotionally invested in Caitlin Clark, not in collective bargaining drama. Ratings, jersey sales, and engagement prove that. Clark holding the unrivaled card was a checkmate move. She demonstrated that she can remain relevant without playing. The same cannot be said for most of the league. If games stop, who still has Super Bowl commercials running? Who still dominates headlines? Who still prints money without stepping on a court? That imbalance is the quiet truth everyone is avoiding.
I had no problem with her being Times Athlete of the Year. You see why I said that she should have been on Team USA? You see why I had to go off on the likes of Cheryl Swoops and others who were clearly distant and dismissive of her, no matter how much they try to deny it? There was resentment towards her. And here's why I said it was stupid. Because when she came into the WNBA, for 22 plus years, they had been flying commercial. They were begging for chartered flights. She arrives there, and 2 weeks later, they got chartered flight.
At the center of all this chaos is a simple realization that feels almost cruel. Caitlin Clark does not need the WNBA. The WNBA desperately needs Caitlin Clark. Stephen A. did not confirm a formal resignation, but he confirmed something more unsettling. The league is one bad decision away from watching its biggest star realize she is happier, richer, and more powerful outside the system than inside it. When the union opted out, they thought they were driving a tank. What they forgot is that the league itself is the car and Caitlin Clark is the engine. Engines do not argue. Caitlin Clark has already shown she can step away without flinching, and that alone should terrify every boardroom involved. The crash out was loud, emotional, and impulsive. But her response was calm, calculated, and devastating. And history tends to remember the quiet moves that change everything, not the loud ones that burn it all.